We all know that owning a small business means you wear many hats, but sometimes you really need an extra pair of hands. Upwork is how good companies find great and trusted freelance talent. With more than 2 decades of experience, with the simple and ambitious goal of pioneering a better way of working, companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in staffing key projects and initiatives. They access a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web dev, marketing, and more. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, and get help drafting a job post or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them and take your business to the next level. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I'm really shaking my head with this one. You know, I really don't belong to the AMA and a lot of medical groups, but I do belong to the American Academy of Family Physicians because I am a family physician. I'm board certified. I'm a fellow. But I guess they're not without their politics. And so they have now decided to back up the American Academy of Pediatrics and recommend that everybody and their mother get COVID vaccines, bucking the current guidance at the FDA where those high risk should get it, or those with at least one risk factor should get the COVID vaccine, and those who are not at high risk, up to you and your doctor. They've decided to go against that, which I disagree with. And they want all adults, children, and pregnant women to get COVID-19 vaccines. You know, the American Academy of Family Physicians, you know, I wish they weren't political. I was in a meeting with some local individuals, and they had brought up, why aren't we doing what the American Academy of Pediatrics aren't doing? Why aren't we pushing back? We need to be fighting for these vaccines. We need to be, you know, and I noticed some of the people in the room were just, you know, I'm just not going to get political with everybody. And I wanted to say something. There was a study that came out May 20 of 2025 in the New England Journal of Medicine. It was called An Evidence-Based Approach to COVID-19 Vaccination. Dr. Prasad, Dr. Martin McCary wrote this, and, you know, they are a part of the FDA. And they said the FDA's new COVID philosophy represents a balance of regulatory flexibility and a commitment to gold standard science. The FDA will approve vaccines for high-risk persons and, at the same time, demand robust gold standard data on persons at low risk. What's wrong with that? They're right. These clinical trials will inform future directions for the FDA, but more important, according to New England Journal of Medicine and Dr. McCary, they will provide information that is desperately craved by healthcare providers and the American people. And what's so ridiculous about this is not a lot of people are getting the COVID shot. I think less than 25% of the population chose to get the COVID vaccine this last year. And though the majority of them were high risk. I mean, we're not really talking about a lot of people. I mean, it is, yes, millions of Americans, but we're not really talking about the majority of the population. The average person, average healthy person in America doesn't want the vaccine. Otherwise, we would be having higher vaccination numbers. So then somebody could say, well, then, Dr. Daliah, why even have then the guidance? Leave it the way Biden had it. Well, because we have a duty. When a patient asks me, do I need to get this vaccine? Do I need to get it? I'm going to be pregnant. Should I get the vaccine before I get pregnant or after? I don't have the data. Everything was rushed during the start of COVID. And so I thought that once the dust settled, the Biden administration in 2021 and 2022 and 2023 would say, okay, guys, this is what we could do. All right. We are starting to see that, yes, some of the side effects that people can get might not necessarily warrant a healthy person getting the vaccine. So it's up to you, but we're not going to have them routinely recommended. They didn't do that. So RFK Jr. did. It had to be done. Now, I have not seen evidence that, and this is what the left is saying, that now, because of this guidance, people are banned from getting a vaccine. They're going to die of COVID. I've not seen evidence to that. What I've seen is if you want to get a COVID vaccine, you could still get one. Now, they're not giving out free anymore because that funding dried up during the Biden administration. And yes, you may need a prescription, like a lot of vaccines, you still need prescriptions for. But there is still a way for you to get the vaccines. That's no lie. So, I get the American Academy of Family Physicians, because I was there at one of the meetings where they're like, well, we need to say something. The American Academy of Pediatrics says, let's do that. Let's say something. And they speak for, nobody asked my opinion. Nobody, sent me an email saying, look, this is what we want to submit. How do you feel? And a lot of doctors are in agreement with, why are we recommending things to healthy individuals? The government has always been about don't overdo things with patients. That's why the USPSTF is so controversial. We're like, you know what? I think a self-breast exam is a good idea. I think, getting your thyroid screened, getting a men osteoporosis screening. The USPSTF is very conservative, not conservative in terms of politics, but conservative in terms of, we're going to recommend something because the insurance companies don't want to have to pay. So with all that conservativeness on, we don't have to necessarily, screen for this routinely. We don't have to do that yet with the vaccines. It's, give everybody and their 6-month-old child the vaccine. And read the room. People are not getting the boosters. They don't want to. But those who do want to, which appears to be about 25% of the population, which I'm wondering, how accurate that is, they're getting it. So, what is this, horse and pony show? What's it called? Dog and pony show? I think there's a lot of dramatics, but what stinks is the more these medical groups look like they're siding with Biden or being anti-Trump, the more they're really hurting patients. The reason why this is happening is because patients want to know what the hell the situation is. And we are losing patient trust by the second. Getting it back involves us re-looking at the science and always reevaluating to see if things have changed. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys. We're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So as a doctor of many, many years, I have seen the gamut of mental illness and what some people are capable of, and some really scary stuff, even with kids. One kid stabbing his brother with a pencil through his finger, through his hand. And, you know, you could see mental illness sometimes pretty easily as kids. And then some of them, they just develop it later once they don't have the parental supervision and the checks and balances, or their condition worsens. And, you know, when people feel they're possessed, or they are being told to do something, or it's in their head to say, just do it. You can't reason with people. You can't use our logic, being mentally healthy, to understand what could be going on in somebody who's mentally ill. And so it's a shame that many mentally ill individuals aren't discovered until they commit a crime. But if we are able to discover them, and they get arrested for a nonviolent crime, you would think, as society, we're like, well, let's work with them, let's intervene, so they don't go out into society and cause something that could be more dangerous. Well, that did not happen with DeCarlos Brown Jr., the 34-year-old suspect who on video we saw, but still innocent until proven guilty, allegedly stabbed to death the Ukrainian refugee on a Charlotte light rail train at nearly 10 o'clock at night. Now, we're being told that a North Carolina magistrate judge is now under fire because they let him go. This judge, Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes, released DeCarlos Brown, knowing that DeCarlos Brown was schizophrenic and a repeat offender, to walk free without bond. On January 21, the magistrate judge, Teresa Stokes, put on a written promise to appear, or gave him a written promise to appear, after he was arrested on charges of misusing the 911 system during a police welfare check. Now, Brown is homeless, has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, has told officers he believes that man-made material was implanted in his body, controlling his movements. He had been arrested many times previously. You see all his mugshots. And when officers advised him it was a medical matter, Brown became agitated and called 911 again. Officers then arrested him and charged him with a Class 1 misdemeanor. But he did have, a violent history as well, and other arrests, multiple arrests. But sadly, on August 22nd, Brown was on the Charlotte area transit system train, did not pay fare, somehow just walked on. And then Irina Zarutska walks on, grabs an empty seat, starts scrolling through her phone, and you see Mr. Brown stand up and start stabbing her. Her family said she had fled war-torn Ukraine in search of a safer life and a new beginning in the United States. Now, the suspect's mother even said the court system failed the community by releasing her son, telling reporters that he had been under psychiatric monitoring after a schizophrenia diagnosis in 2014. He became so aggressive, according to the Washington Examiner, that his mom couldn't allow him in her home. So what else was he busted for? Well, armed robbery back in 2014, assault on his sister 2021, as well as multiple other arrests. So why did Judge Stokes release him this January? They say Stokes was appointed and supervised by the chief district judge in Mecklenburg County, is not a licensed attorney or a member of the North Carolina State Bar, but I guess you could be a magistrate and not have to be. Under law, magistrates can qualify with a 4-year college degree and a 2-year associate degree or 4 years of experience. But this judge has had, I guess, a past of affinity for criminal and addiction recovery activism. So what we're seeing is that there's this big push for remediation. This big push to say, look, we don't just lock somebody up and throw away the key. We work with them. And I agree with that. But there's such now a pendulum flip to, they're all good people. We just need to get them the resources, get them out of jail, because the more you keep them in jail, the worse they could become. Okay, well, then where is the follow-up? I mean, this DeCarlos Brown was arrested multiple times. Where was his regular sessions? Who was watching him? Who was supervising him so that he wouldn't stab somebody? See, it's our job as society to see who could be a threat to others. And if somebody could be a threat to others, we need to separate them from society. There are many ways to do that are not necessarily meaning we have to incarcerate them or put them in jail. But mental illness is very impulsive sometimes. It could cause impulsive actions, very inconsistent, not predictable. And so when you keep releasing somebody, saying, look, we need to do good. We need to show that we are in support. I want to show my numbers that I didn't incarcerate people. I let people go. Now the death of this young Ukrainian girl is on her hands. And so, I think housing, recovery services for individuals who struggle with law, somebody stealing bread to feed their family, I think, yes, we should, as society, work with them because they might be committing crime not to hurt others, but to protect and help their family. But somebody, stealing a TV during a riot, come on. Now, we also need to provide an out for people who get stuck in a gang situation, where if they don't join the gang, they could be killed. So they get recruited, or as you see with, Al Qaeda or whatever, radicalized to join ISIS, and they can't get out because if they get out, they think they're going to be found and killed. And then they're told to do things, and they do it because that's not that they want to, they have to. There's got to be also a way to intervene with that, break those gangs up. And a lot of the looting and a lot of the what we've seen in the last few years, was organized crime. These were organized by gangs or individuals who said, this is what you're going to do. And what happens when somebody says, oh, I think I'll pass? What happens to them? So we do need to look at the why. I think the why is extremely important. But while you are looking at the why, don't just release them. Make sure you have thoroughly vetted that person could be out there and not stab or kill innocent victims. And I don't know what the gun laws are in North Carolina, but this was a knife. If somebody wants to kill, they're going to use their weapon of choice. Or they're going to run people down with their car like we saw in New Orleans. And so there's got to be a happy medium. But unfortunately, you have right and left. And so you have left-leaning judges who feel like they have to show, well, this is what we're doing. We don't care if he worked with, MS-13 or Tren de Aragua or whatever. We need to show that we were on the left side. Really read the room. This isn't what people want. And again, we don't want to be a society where you make a mistake and you're just locked up for life. No. That's why we have a process. But if we don't have enough individuals that are overseeing people on parole or overseeing individuals that are out there, I mean, look at the Menendez brothers. They did not make parole. And this wasn't, just killing random citizens. This was a direct hit on their mom and dad. And they did not make parole because nobody could explain, with all the abuse that they alleged that happened with the father, why would you kill your mother? And when she didn't die, go back, reload to finish the job. And in California, they did not feel that Lyle or Eric Menendez were safe enough to go back into society. That's in California. So it makes you wonder what this North Carolina judge was thinking. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Well, I don't want to get cancer. I don't want to get Alzheimer's. I don't want to get dementia. But after all of those scary things, I really don't want to get diabetes. Most of the people in my family, grandparents, parents, had a form of diabetes. And seeing patients with diabetes, you could really be behind the 8 ball as it pertains to your heart and artery clogging and vision and neuropathy. And so I've been very, very lucky to not have diabetes, but it's something I really want to avoid. Yet we're being told, which isn't a shock to me, that nearly half of people with diabetes have absolutely no clue that they have it. 44% of people age 15 and older are living with diabetes undiagnosed. This is according to data that was published yesterday in the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology. The study looked at data from 204 countries and territories from 2000 to 2023 in a systematic review of published literature. And they say the majority of people with diabetes that we report on in the study have type 2 diabetes. Because type 1 diabetes, where you're insulin deficient pretty early on, we usually see it as a kid. So it's pretty obvious because they're losing weight. They're sick. They get sick a lot. They're not feeling well. So usually we'll pick it up as a kid. But you have some individuals that don't have type 1 diabetes till they're in their 20s. But the majority of the diabetes they're talking about are the ones that are type 2, where you have insulin, but the insulin might not be working as well as it should, or you have insulin resistance, or you might not have enough of it. So according to the American Diabetes Association and my NBC5, 1 in 9 adults live with diabetes worldwide, according to the International Diabetes Foundation. In the United States, 11.6% of Americans, so 1 in 10, almost, I'd say 1 in 9, have diabetes. This is according to, and 1 in 9 adults, that they just said it as well. And they say they found that 56% of people with diabetes were aware that they had the condition, but the other 44% no. They say globally there's a lot of variation geographically and also by age, so generally higher income countries were doing better at diagnosing people than low and middle income countries. But here in America, we just don't have the enthusiasm we used to for people going and getting their blood work checked. I can't tell you how many patients I've seen. They're in their 50s or 60s. They have an issue. Like I'll have a woman that calls up saying, I'm getting a lot of yeast infections. And I go, when was your last check for diabetes? Oh, I haven't had blood work in years. Really? I used to do yearly exams. When was your last physical? When I haven't gone to the doctor. People don't go to the doctor anymore. So, of course, they're developing diabetes. And then they could be sadly developing other consequences of that, whether it's frequent UTIs, whether it's frequent yeast infections, whether it's kidney disease, eye disease. So they say people under 35 were much less likely to be diagnosed if they had diabetes than people who were middle-aged or older. They say 20% of young adults with diabetes were aware of their condition, which means 80% had no clue. Now, the American Diabetes Association suggests that we start screening you at the age of 35. If you're pregnant, we will screen you when you're pregnant. We don't mess around. If you have a strong family history and your kids are losing weight or they're dizzy or they're struggling at school, we might check them for that as well. But, people ask, how does somebody with diabetes not know? Well, if it's mild, you might not feel it. If it's severe, you could go into a coma. But if it's mild, you might not know. Or you might treat your symptoms thinking it's something else. Well, I'm tired, so I'm going to go have an energy drink. Or I'm going to take a nap. Or I'm thirsty, so I'm just going to drink more water. So some people will misinterpret some of their symptoms. What are symptoms of diabetes? Excessive thirst, excessive urination, dizziness, frequent infections. When it gets severe, blurred vision, ulcers on your feet, neuropathy. But that's when it gets severe. For mild diabetes, you might not even feel it. And so, and because we're eating a lot of crap, we're eating a lot of sugary food, a lot of carbs, that's not helping. And I've explained how I look at diabetes. I learned this from a nurse when I was in medical school. I went to a diabetic training class at Desert Springs Hospital. They had us medical students do that to learn how to teach patients about diabetes. And she explained it beautifully. She explained it, which I've explained it to you, is like you look at an office. There's a waiting room, right, which could be your mouth. Then you have the hallways, which could be your bloodstream. And then you have the rooms, right, that people go from the hallway into the rooms. Those are the cells. And the job of insulin is the key to open that door, to get the sugar from the bloodstream into the cell or the hallway into the room. If you are a type 1 diabetic and you don't have enough insulin, those doors are opening. The sugar stays in the bloodstream. You don't get fed. You don't gain weight because it's not going into the cells. You start getting skinny. You start getting dizzy, very thirsty. And the sugar, does damage to a lot of the other organs. Type 2 diabetes, same thing. The sugar can cause a lot of damage. But type 2 diabetics, they obviously made it to adulthood, so they have some insulin. So they they have been able to function, but maybe they just don't have enough insulin. Or they're eating too much sugar. Too much sugar is coming down the pike such that they don't have enough insulin to meet that need, which is why we say to decrease sugar. Or you have something pushing against the door. You got the key. The key is there. You have enough keys, but something is pushing against the door. That's called insulin resistance, which in physiological terms might be fat. And so we want to make sure that key is more sensitive and you have increased your insulin sensitivity. So let's give, your body less sugary foods. Let's exercise. Exercise kind of lubes up the key. Right? It also helps decrease some of that weight that could be pushing or that resistance. And our job is to get the sugar from the bloodstream into the cell. If not, it's very sticky. So it sticks to the walls, helps cholesterol clog your arteries even more. Blood vessels in the eye, it's so sugary. In nature, we try to become more neutral, osmolarity-wise. And nature wants things less salty, but they always want to try to go for neutral. So if your blood is very sugary, your body is going to desire to drink more to neutralize it. Well, how much fluid can the little blood vessels in your eyes handle? They start to pop because the sugar makes them weak. Same thing. You get poor blood flow. Your kidneys are trying to overwork because of dealing with all the extra sugar. And so your kidneys can start to fail. And then bacteria and fungus love the taste of sugar. This is why we see a lot of yeast infections in people with diabetes, because the yeast love sugar. And bacteria. If you get a bacterial infection, the bacteria don't have a lot of incentive to leave because you're sugary, you're tasty. So it's harder to fight the infection. Not to mention your blood is clogged with all that extra sugar that your immune system doesn't work that well. And that if you get an infection, the infection could sadly be a lot more aggressive or more recalcitrant to treatment. So I recommend for you to get checked out. Get routine blood work. Even if you want to, I understand the USPSTF doesn't recommend it, but if you're in your 20s and you're like, look, I don't know about my diet. My family doesn't go to the doctor, so I don't know much about my family history. Get the test. A blood sugar test is not that expensive. And physicals are paid for by Obamacare. If your doctor puts a reason for it, it might get covered. But, the idea that people just don't know what they have is sad. And the fact that people just do not want to go and get tested anymore or go and get routine visits, that's a problem. I mean, we have the ability to prevent strokes, heart attack, blindness, you losing a leg by finding your diabetes early. Let us do our job. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious, such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out. All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So my husband and son got tags. I think one got an elk tag, another got a deer tag this year during hunting season. And, they're getting their orange vests and, mommy knows that other hunters will see them and hopefully not hurt them. But I had asked a question. I go, well, wait a second here. You're wearing orange, but how do we know the animal won't see you? Well, deer doesn't see orange very well. Deers, I think they have dichromatic vision. So if they look at orange, orange looks brown, muddyish to them. So you could wear orange and not see them. Don't worry, they're not going to kill an innocent doe-eyed little deer. They're going to, try to find an animal that's old, maybe sick, or just go there to hang out and do the hunt. They love animals. We do love our animals, but they know how to hunt, fish. That's what they do. But, an interesting thing as it pertains to colors is we perceive colors differently even as humans. So, I'm watching a show, and, I think we were watching a Modern Family episode. And I guess the kid needed teal, not blue, but teal. And so the parents and Cam and Mitch went, didn't have something teal for one of the other nephews, and so they had to go shopping for one. And so when they were at the store, my husband goes, "That's not teal, that's blue." And I go, "No, that's teal." And I'm noticing my husband, the colors, he doesn't see colors the same way I do. I've noticed that for a while. And it's interesting. There's an article here from nature.com saying my blue is your blue. But people's brains process colors differently. They say a study looked at the patterns of brain activity in 15 participants and suggests that colors are represented and processed in the same way in the brains of different people. However, what I've noticed is sometimes, even though we process it, we might look at it differently. People who are colorblind may also see red differently, like a different shade of gray, although there's varying degrees of color blindness. And so even though our brain might be activated similarly, I do believe that people look at colors differently. Now, animals, what colors can they see? People say, well, what about cats and dogs? Are they colorblind? No, they're not necessarily colorblind. They see two colors, cats and dogs, but not as vividly as we do. Because remember, they don't need to. Spiders can see ultraviolet and green light. Insects can see ultraviolet light, blue light, and yellow light. Crustaceans, crayfish, can see blue and red. Octopi and squids, the cephalopods, they only see blue. Fish can see two colors. I'm dying to know how they figure that out, but I guess they do. They ask them. Frogs can see some color. Snakes can see color and infrared. Now, birds can see a lot of colors, 5 to 7 different colors. Rabbits can see blue and green. Rats can see UV light, blue and green. Squirrels, blue and yellow. But apes and monkeys can see the same that humans can see. The spectrum. Although South American monkeys can't see red well of all their colors. But it's interesting how it really depends on our cones, and our vision depends on our rods and cones. Our cones are the color perceiving cells of the eye. And humans have 3 types. We have red, red, green, and blue. So we usually have trichromatic vision. Most animals are dichromats, where they only have 2 types of cones, like dogs and cats. They perceive fewer colors. But you have some animals that are called tetrachromats, where they have 4 types of cones, which can see more colors, including UV light. And they're called the tetrachromats, which is kind of nice. So, for those of you who are like, I really can't tell. They do have those. There's a lot of different ways to check our vision, which I think we all should be having regular vision checks for. But I really do believe that sometimes humans might not necessarily be perceiving the exact same color, because I have been always in disagreement going, no, that's scarlet. No, it isn't. It's purple. That's not purple, honey. It's more reddish. So we call it scarlet. And, he's just like, no, I don't get it. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Speaking of not getting it, Cracker Barrel had originally not gotten it when they said, you know what? Let's change our logo and let's change the way the restaurants are. And after the huge backlash they got, apparently it was enough for them to go, maybe we don't really need to do this. We're losing money. I think their stock dropped considerably. Trump even said, look, it's okay to save yourselves at this point. It's okay. Why don't you just take a step back, say, you know what? We tried it. It looks like it's not going to work. Go back. You'll save yourself the time and money. So they did decide to go back on the logo and to not necessarily go with the simplified logo where they have the man and the barrel and sitting in a chair, old country store, rather than it was just going to be a yellow and scarlet type of logo. Now they said they're not going to remodel their restaurants. Apparently they were going to expand their modern remodel design at 600 at some of their 660 locations. And people thought it was because they were going woke. Because I think the CEO had, said, we want to be more representative and we want to be, and you're looking at this country theme going, what's wrong with the country theme? Well, the company said in a statement today, you've shared your voices in recent weeks, not just on our logo, but also on our restaurants. We're continuing to listen. They say today we're suspending our remodels. If your restaurant hasn't been remodeled, you don't need to worry. It won't be. So this all stemmed from the All the More campaign with logo change and all that. And, they say the majority of people who backlash were conservative. I didn't care one way or the other because I don't go to Cracker Barrel a lot. They have good food. I just don't go there a lot. But, these companies are trying to reinvent themselves, and they're trying to find new customers. And Cracker Barrel suggested they want the younger folk. Having an older man with a barrel and a chair might not be attracting, the young Gen Zs, etc. Well, you're not going to attract the young Gen Zs if your price point is too high. Okay, these Gen Zs and millennials don't necessarily want to be paying $24 for a salad or sandwich. Now, I'm not saying that's what, Cracker Barrel costs, but that's what the average restaurant is costing. It's ridiculous, the prices. And so if you don't go back to even Denny's had to start cutting back their prices and bringing back less expensive Grand Slams because people just cannot afford it. So if you want to appeal to the younger people, I get simplifying logos. Pepsi has changed their logo. McDonald's has changed their logo. I get that. But if you're trying to be, more woke or trying to minimize something that might look more Midwest or red state, it's not going to work. Because the majority of your customers, you got to read the room. And a lot of these companies aren't doing that. We're, with the job support and everything, we are going to be sadly seeing, the changes in our economy as people are bucking the high costs. They're starting to make different decisions. They're also, many of them are on Ozempic and Manjaro, so they're eating less. So they're not willing to go out and, order appetizers and desserts, so they're ordering less. But, I'm glad Cracker Barrel finally kind of read the room. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
you believe with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.